Everyone. It's so nice to be here today. My name is Poonama and I'm a volunteer and the president for Yoga in Daily Life Australia and based in Adelaide. On behalf of Yoga in Daily Life Australia, we welcome everyone to our annual celebration of International Day of Yoga. International Day of Yoga, or IDY, was initiated in India to celebrate the ancient practice of yoga and to acknowledge the origins of this worldwide phenomenon, which is practiced by millions nowadays. This day was set to bring further awareness about the significance of yoga and how beneficial it is holistically for human health and well-being. Living a yogic lifestyle or adopting even a few of the principles also simultaneously heightens awareness of caring for all creatures and protecting the environment for ongoing sustainability. So yes, practicing yoga can achieve all of these objectives. For many, yoga is a daily practice already, integrating body, mind, and soul, thus creating more connectedness with the world around us and a heightened consciousness of the divine. The initiator of International Day of Yoga was the Ministry of Ayurveda, Yoga, Naturopathy, Unani, Siddha and Homeopathy, AYUSH for short. And IDY is supported by the United Nations Organization also. The very first global celebration was held on the 21st of June 2015. The founder of Yoga in Daily Life, His Holiness Vishwaguruji Mahamandeleshwar Paramahant Swami Maheshwarananda, has been traveling the world for about 50 years, bringing the message of yoga and its benefits. Yoga in Daily Life is a not-for-profit humanitarian organisation with many centres and ashrams around the world, which promote the physical, mental, social and spiritual well-being of individuals and the general community through study, practice and teaching of the well-established and very successful system of yoga in daily life. The activities are aimed to serve mankind or humankind by promoting health, world peace, humanitarian aid, protection of the environment and all creatures, respect and freedom among religions, cultures and nations. We at Yoga in Daily Life Australia are under the global umbrella of Yoga in Daily Life. And we are also a not-for-profit humanitarian organisation in roster consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. Yoga in Daily Life centres around the world have celebrated this special event every year since its inception by offering free activities that complement the focal themes set by the United Nations. The IDY22 theme is Yoga for Wellbeing. This year, as part of our celebration of IDY, Yoga in Daily Life centres from all over Australia are offering a free series of 4 webinars each Saturday in June. The webinars will cover the Yoga in Daily Life 4 pillars of health and well-being, which are mental, physical, social and spiritual health. We invite you to join us online to hear our experienced Yoga in Daily Life teachers share the traditional yogic wisdom and some practical tips that can benefit all aspects of your health and well-being. The first webinar today of the 4 sessions is on mental health, a very relevant topic in today's challenging and changing world. Madhu, who is based at our Sydney Centre in Marylands, is an accredited yoga and meditation teacher who has been volunteering with Yoga in Daily Life since 1996. In her professional life, Madhu deals with different kinds of learning and development. She has a master's in psychology and business administration and a postgraduate in coaching and organisational development. So I am very pleased and confident that you will thoroughly enjoy her talk today and gain heaps of interesting information and practical tips to incorporate in your daily life. Thank you, Madhu. So I'll hand you over now to our Sydney Centre. Hadiya.
Thank you, Purnima. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see you in this setting. And yes, 4 pillars of yoga in daily life for health is our topic for these 4 webinars. It's usually, it could have been first physical, then mental. Just from practical reasons, we are starting today with the mental health. And then we will have Yamuna from Sunshine Coast with physical on the next Saturday. And I will share the screen, and I hope that we can do it somehow, although it is a presentation, still in an interactive way, in a sense that if you have some question, you can write it in the chat or maybe raise your hand, and then we can clarify, or I will say that, for example, the answer will come later and I will clarify it later. So please just feel free to participate, and we are among the friends. So, and sharing the screen here. I have 2 screens. One is with you, everybody in front of me, and the other side is presentation. So I will be looking a little bit left and right, just that you understand why. So Purnima already nicely explained about yoga in daily life. And the topics of this presentation are basically, I will just shortly go to what is yoga and then what is mental health, and some also prevalence and most common disorders, although that's a little bit more of psychology and a little bit less of yoga, just to get some frame. And then we will go into preserving mental health and yoga for emotional well-being, for cognitive functions, and a little bit about yoga and COVID-19. So just to set the frame for the presentation, what is yoga? Well, it's a principle, it's a end state or destination where we want to come, and it's a path to that. As a principle, omnipresent, everlasting, awakened consciousness that keeps in balance the whole universe. Principle that balances all koshas, all 5 physical body, Annamaya kosha, pranic body, mental body, Manomaya, and Vigyan Maya, and then Anandmaya kosha. So all the koshas. As a destination, reunion with our source and state of being without any vrittis. As a path to the realization of that, Jnana, Raja, Karma, Bhakti, and techniques that help to answer the universal questions of life. There was a question, I think, but I can't now find it. There is no presentation visible. Okay, was the presentation visible or not? It was. Okay, share screen again. So is the presentation on and we can see it? Thanks. And So now about the next one is about health and mental health. So World Health Organization says that mental health is a state of well-being in which every individual realizes their own potential as a first. Then they can cope with the stress of life. Then they can work productively and fruitfully, and they are able to make a contribution to their own community. And then there is a concept of mental health and psychosocial support, and that is any type of local or outside support that aims to protect or promote psychological well-being and or prevent threats to or threat mental disorder. In that sense, this yoga for sure fits in there. So now, what is illness as opposed of health? And then we will put it in context. State in which there is a big change in thinking, feeling, behavior. State in that prevents our normal functioning. State that lasts for a longer period of time. Because if something happens and just for a short period of time I'm in distress, it doesn't mean the illness necessarily. Huh? And then it prevents us from achieving what we want, realizing our goals, and disrupts our relationships. And then it's not 0-1. That's not a binary thing. It's a continuum. We have like 5 different stages between totally, optimally healthy and ill. Thriving, healthy, reacting, injured, and ill. And each of them has their own characteristics. So maybe you can read and find yourself in general where you are. I will not read through it. You can read yourself. And then a little bit about the prevalence. So this is from 2017. Substance use disorders worldwide. And then some more recent data, 2 years after, but still before COVID. Anxiety and depression as 2 main issues of modern humans before COVID, before the global pandemic that made also things worse. And then if you just take a look at the percentages and try to, this is global, that's world. Now try to think what is Australia, because we are mostly here from Australia. I'm so sorry I don't have it from now Austria, but I can send you the link and then you can browse and find by countries. Okay. So this is Australia, if you see the percentages. Right. And just to make a distinction between the 2, depression and anxiety, some symptoms are similar or the same, and then some are different. I don't want to really go into definitions. I'll just do it quickly like this. You can read, there is something called depressive disorder. And these are the criterias. And basically there are 2 main subcategories. One is called major depressive disorder or depressive episode, which can be mild, moderate, or severe. And the other one is called dysthymia, and that's persistent or chronic form of mild depression. And the symptoms are similar, but less intense, lasting longer. I'm just singling out depression and anxiety because these 2 are most common illness of nowadays, of common human. And there are many students also coming to classes because doctors told them, general practitioners, okay, go to yoga, and they have either or, mostly anxiety actually when we get the calls, phone calls, and inquiries. So anxiety, again, it's a physical response to threats or perceived threats, not necessarily existing one, but somebody perceives something. Okay, so physical symptoms: heart pumping, rapid breathing, butterflies in the stomach. It can be burst of energy, okay, excessive fear, worries, obsessive thinking, and so on. It disturbs our concentration, sleep. We can't carry out our tasks. Okay, and again, under anxiety, there is many different, let's say, subcategories. So generalized anxiety disorder, panic, phobias, social anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress. So these all come into this category of anxiety. Again, the symptoms can range from mild to severe, and the duration also more chronic than episodic, more like long term. So now something very recent and interesting. So there was a very recent policy brief from World Health Organization launched on the 3rd of June 22 at this conference. And they say that climate change possesses serious risks to mental health and well-being. And they were urging countries to include mental health support in their response to the climate crisis. And in World Health Organization's survey from 21 out of 95 countries, only 9 had so far included mental health and psychosocial support in their national health and climate change plans. And then also something interesting and like current and global, that's the Lancet study about the prevalence of and burden of depressive and anxiety disorders in 204 countries and territories in 2020 due to the COVID-19. So definitely there is a really rise in both of them, anxiety and depression. But then again, some later studies said that actually after a while, these symptoms again decline, and that ability of person to adapt defines if the symptom will be long lasting or not. So now we need to have more researchers from that field that are not just from the beginning of the pandemic, because in the beginning of the pandemic, everything went really high. So we are waiting for new researchers. And then how our topic mainly is how to perceive mental health. And these are, if you browse different countries that have some web pages about it, you will find these strategies there. Healthy diet, sleep, exercise, relaxation, mindfulness, social support, and then some kind of helping profession working with us. And now if we think what we have in yoga, for sure, we have healthy diet, like Swamiji always speaks, the author of Yoga and the Life System, how it is important, what we eat. And then for sure, there is a sleep, because also Vishwa Guruji always says, yogi is the one who doesn't do too much or too less. And always he picks sleep when he speaks about it, not too much sleep. And then we have yoga nidra as yogic way of sleep. And we have our daily sadhana with exercises, and we have our relaxations, and we have our meditation, which is much more than mindfulness. And we have our satsangs, which is social support group, basically, healing from the worldly disease. And we have this coaching, counseling, therapy, because we learn how to do it to ourselves, by ourselves, in our self-inquiry meditation steps. Plus the ability to approach our spiritual master and ask and get really some advice. So all is included in the system, basically. And I like this very much. What if we recharged ourselves as often as we did our phones? Just for those who don't practice yoga, to get an idea. If the phone, if the mobile needs to go to recharge, well, our system needs as well. And then about yoga and emotional well-being as one aspect of the mental. Here are some researches. Let's say when you read meta-analysis, it means that the author took more researches and made some statistics on them. So it's more reliable because the sample is bigger. So and this is in children and adults. Practice of yoga significantly decreases the level of anxiety. And I will just state the findings, and then I will go and explain how it does that. Then again, meta-analysis of number of researches lowers the level of stress in children and adults. And then practice of yoga lowers the level of depression. And practice of yoga increases the self-image and the level of self-confidence. And then changes in personality, which is really interesting in the adolescence. After 9 months of yoga practice, adolescents that were on extreme of introversion or extroversion came closer to middle values. And again, we can remind ourselves what we hear very often in the lectures: yoga is not too much or too less. So some moderate or balanced path. So closer to middle values of this introvert extrovert spectrum, and higher self-confidence. About the main tool of yoga, we can do the physical exercises just physically in gym, thinking of God knows what, or watching TV. And that's not yoga. The main tool of yoga is awareness. Whatever we do it with complete awareness of the stillness, of the movement, of the breath, of our emotions, thoughts, and so on. So the value of self-awareness. This author here, Bessel von der Kolk, I think it's how we pronounce that. And he is basically psychiatrist, researcher, educator, Dutch by origin, based now in Boston, USA. And his book, The Body Keeps the Score, was the bestseller selected from New York Times. So in this book, he speaks, because he specialized for trauma, he speaks how traumatized people, speech center and front lobe of their brain just go offline. So therefore, any kind of psychotherapy based on speech, like talk, just doesn't help. And we need to find a way to bypass the language if we want to help these people. And then he also says that although traumatic event is over, has passed, body still behaves as it is happening now. So body keeps the score, remembers. And trauma lives in the body. And so he teaches people how to feel safe in their body. And if we think of meditation, what we do is actually that we sit comfortably, and then we feel safe, and we open our heart, and we feel peace and contentment, and all these beautiful, the most beautiful feelings. And that's really what heals in the process of meditation. And then this is really interesting. He says the moment we remember trauma, the body starts reliving that. So sometimes by telling the story again, we usually get people upset because they are reliving the same event again. So somehow we need to find a way to revisit the same event, but from the point of calmness and feeling safe and that heals. And then he showed the results of his experiments that revisiting the past calmly, in a calm way and feeling safe, it means that brain reproduces trauma as well as all stuff knocked offline and integration takes place. So what does it mean and how it relates to our techniques? Self-inquiry meditation of level 2. If you think of it when you are revisiting past events, you're just playing that movie in front of your eyes, feeling safe, is actually a healing process for any negative or traumatic experience in our life. We don't need to understand what was really going on there, but just feeling safe gives us the ability to overcome that. So when you just sit and observe, and our in yoga, in daily life system, luckily, because it's integral system and has all the traditional yoga aspects in it, we have mantra. And mantra is the anchor. And then the more we repeat mantra in that safe state, the more mantra gets that power that when we need it, it brings us back to that state. And I wanted to show this because this is really interesting. Anatomy of brain and areas knocked down in traumatized people. And for that, I need to stop share here and then share it differently. Or I could have shared, let's see, share, but with the sound. All right, screen again. Just 1 second, please. Okay, now I'll pull this here. Do you see this, the picture of the guy? Okay, and let us see if we hear the sound.
My former student, Ruth
Do we hear? Okay, thanks.
Lanius, who's Canadian, and she finds 16 normal Canadians to put in the scanner. Almost all Canadians are normal. It's very easy to come. And they say, just lie in the scanner and do anything. It's called, you activate what's called the default state of the brain. And when you just lie there thinking about yourself, you activate all the midline structures that have to do with you. You think about, I'm lying here. Oh, I wish I'd gone to the bathroom. Oh, that's for it feels hard. It's your parietal cortex. It says, oh, this board I'm lying on is a little hard. And this part of your brain is the orbital prefrontal cortex, medial prefrontal cortex, anterior cingulate. It's all about this is who I am. I'm a pretty good guide, volunteering to be part of this experiment for these stupid people at the university, and they're not even paying me for it. Good for me. So these are the midline structures of self-awareness. Then they put 18 chronically traumatized people, like the people we all treat, in the scanner, and say, just lie there and notice what goes on with you. There's certain neuroimaging studies that should knock your sock off and say, okay, this really changes the whole ballgame. What you see here is that all the structures in the brain having to do with self-awareness, self-knowledge, and self-experience are knocked out. There is no there there. They're not home. Stuff happens to people, but they're not the agents of their fate. They just respond. So, neuroimaging and neuroscience is important because you can come up with a lot of superficial solutions, but if there's nobody home, the solutions ain't going to work. And so the challenge is, how do you get people to notice themselves? to feel themselves, to feel their bodies, to feel what goes on inside of themselves. And only after you know your interiority can you begin to have a life. I showed you some other scans today. And so these are the themes of my book, is don't really come up with really superficial solutions, because these are very complex problems. They have solutions, but they only have solutions if you really treat the real problem.
Okay, so we got the idea, and what he's describing is basically what we do in meditation and what we do during the whole yoga class. We learn, we teach ourselves, we train the part of the brain that is an observer to be present, to notice the stillness, the movement, the breath, emotions, thoughts. At all levels, we all the time observe. And even if it's just 5-minute, 10-minute meditation at the end of the class, it doesn't matter, because through the whole yoga class, our students or ourselves, when we practice, we are training the brain to be present and to observe. So that's what we do. And I want to go back to, okay, going back to presentation. One second. So the second, after the self-awareness, what we very often hear also from Vishwaguruji, the author of the Yoga in Their Life System, he says the best book to read is what? Do you remember? Is to read the chapters of our life. And reading the chapters of the life is Svadhyaya. And that is going even beyond of revisiting from the place of feeling safe. It enables us to integrate versus I don't want to think about it because it was unpleasant, so suppression. It enables us to learn from experience, and through that we come to wisdom. And also what happens is that after a while, no matter how was the experience, we start appreciating because we learned something from that. So it's not what happened, but it's connotation we give to that. So after a while, we can really appreciate and be thankful and grateful. So not only about wakening up dormant parts of the brain, but also growing our wisdom from our own experience. And there is one intervention in psychotherapy and counseling, emotional journey exercise, like you put your whole life in front of your eyes or you draw it, and then what emotions you had in different parts of the life in some stages and like this, and then you go, what have I learned from there? And you actually start appreciating and integrating. And the whole yoga is about balancing and integrating. So the value determines how do we feel. And this is some basic model in psychology that explains that. So here we have some situation, and here we perceive that situation. And then the moment you have a perception, normally everybody, we can't avoid that process, is that you actually compare what you have perceived with your expectation about it. From this math, comparing these two comes, yay, it's great, much better than I expected. Or, wow, it doesn't work, it's not good, it's different, less opposite of what I have expected, or it's irrelevant to me. So the emotion actually comes from this mathematic, comparing the two. And then when we have certain emotional reaction, we produce behavior. And very often people think that their behavior is a product of the situation. Situation determines the behavior, but it's not, because between the situation and behavior, there is us. Okay. And also, very often we think we can't influence our emotions, but we can, because first, there is how I perceive the situation. That's the first level of influence. And then I ask myself, what have I expected? And then I ask myself, what is the best way to react in this situation? So between situation and behavior, there are three possible points of influence. And between situation and emotion, still there are 2 points of influence. So I can't say that the situation makes me somehow, but it's my expectations or interpretation that makes me. If there is rush hour every morning, 8 o'clock, and I'm every morning in the car really angry because there is rush hour, it's not up to rush hour, it's up to me. So what was I expecting? If I send email and he doesn't reply, I send an email, he doesn't reply, I send an email, he doesn't reply, and I'm really angry why he doesn't reply. If he never replies, how I expect person to reply. So that's our expectation that makes us feel this or that way, not the situation. So in the same situation, some people are calm, some people are nervous. In the same situation, some people freaked out totally and some remained okay. So it's up to us what we will make. And yoga teaches this. Through yoga, we learn this, because in yoga, we learn to observe our states, our thoughts, which means also expectations, way how I perceive something. Any questions here or comments? Right. Then we go to the next, which is some facets of health. So this is different things that when we say mental health. And then here are again some researches controlling anger in adolescence through yoga. And they became less tired and they had lower anxiety, better quality of the mood, versus control group that had even more negative tendencies. So that were the adolescents who had problem with anger management, and they took that group of adolescents, divided into control and experimental group. Experimental group was practicing yoga, control group not. And so they were better in controlling anger, less tired, and had a lower anxiety and better quality of their mood. And the other group had even more negative tendencies, was even worse with the time. And this one is also really interesting because even with small children, after 40 hours, and they were increasing the yoga session from 10 minutes to half an hour. With really small children, you can't do much, but over 25 weeks, their self-regulation was better, which means, again, controlling self-regulation in emotional sense means controlling the emotion, understanding what's going on with me, and then being able to put that aside. But you know how with us adults, sometimes that's difficult. And then can you imagine children 3 to 5? It's like amazing result. Now, what we get through the breath awareness, some researches, awareness activates central brain regions and improves coordination between frontal cortex and limbic system, which means frontal cortex is rational reasoning and limbic system is emotions, and they come together, they work better together. It stimulates parasympathetic nerve system, which gives us feeling of peace. Again, these are the authors and researches. It decreases the level of melatonin, which is a hormone that is associated with the feeling of joy. Again, through research is proven. And increases the level of certain neurotransmitters that inhibit, they lower the activity of something. So they lower consequently the level of anxiety and the cortisol level, which means less stress. And again, proven by the researches, only through breath awareness. Breath awareness, not even the pranayama, not even the level 4 or Bhastrika, just awareness of the breath, normal, natural breath. More dopamine hormone in ventral striatum means better control of behavior. Again, here are the authors. And what does it mean actually? So the ventral striatum, if that's how it's pronounced in English, sorry, is the brain region that is tracking the value of something I see, subjective value. So I see ice cream and I go, oh, that's great, I like it, I want to have it. And then it's signaling to the brain, to other regions, the presence of reward. And if we practice awareness of the breath, we can better know, predict the outcome of that ice cream, if it's going to be good for me or not. Okay, why I can better know what is good for me? Because I have more of this hormone in this area of the brain. So I'm more precise in predicting if something is good or not for me. So this was about breath awareness. Now we go to another aspect, which is titiksha, sticking to what I have decided. And there is a legendary experiment in psychology, this marshmallow experiment by Walter Mischel and Stanford University team. Experimenter gave the children, small children, a choice. They can have, you can have one marshmallow now, right now, or you can wait until I go out from this room to do something, come back, and then I will give you another one. If you don't eat this one right now, you will get another one. So now the question is, can they resist this sweet temptation for 15 agonizing minutes, or do they surrender to instant gratification? And there is a link to YouTube. I'm not sure if I want to play it because it's really like, it will last. But children were doing all sorts of strategies just not to eat it, like singing, looking at it, throwing it away. Someone was licking it a little bit, putting it so, and they were not allowed to leave the chair. So for small children, that's a nightmare. It was 15 minutes time. After 15 minutes, if they didn't eat that one, they got the other one. So what's really interesting is that after 40 years, they found the same children who were not children anymore, obviously. And they did some research on them. I don't want to go into detail of that research, but that showed that the children who had the ability of delaying gratification, the ability of not eating one in order to get two, 40 years back, they are better in life. achieving their goals, have better results, they have better education, better salaries. And in that experiment, they replicated, it was some experiment for adults, it doesn't matter. They still showed that they can delay gratification, and the others who were not able to delay gratification, who ate that immediately or a little bit later, after 40 years, still they were not able to delay, and they had like more troubles in their life. It's even connected to teenage pregnancies, drug addictions, crime, and so on, or just it's not necessarily that dramatic always, but definitely more success, because we don't have discipline in that case. So by this experiment, it's shown that ability to delay gratification is more or less stable. But it's also shown by some other researches that it can be practiced and developed through mindfulness or meditation. And that's the only technique that can help there. All right. So how that technique of meditation and mindfulness can help with that, to stay put when the things get uncomfortable? We basically have two sides, two brains, let's say, or one brain, two minds. So the willpower is a challenge that has really a lot to do with our brain. By scanning the brains of some volunteers during some task with functional magnetic resonance imaging, the deep structures in the brain, the ventral striatum, was associated with how we process rewards. Prefrontal cortex is keeping track of our long-term goals. So long-term goals and, wow, I like this cake. Okay, reward. Now I'm passionate about something. So this is, let's say, ratio, and this is, let's say, emotions. And two versions of ourselves are always fighting. Something that you know that is good for yourself, and something that you feel in this very moment. I want to stay in bed. It's so warm and nice, especially now when it's winter. But it would be really good to get up and do my practice, my sadhana, but it's so good in bed. Okay, so the two, and we have this so-called willpower challenge every moment almost, so many times during the day, not on daily basis, but like minute by minute almost. So the two versions of ourselves, we can say, are fighting. And the author of this, I will show very soon who that is, Willpower Instinct, Kelly McGonigal. She says we are completely different people depending on which mind is active, which version of ourselves is active. And this experiment is from Stanford University School of Medicine, and Stanford also established a Center for Compassion. All right, so now some of the findings of her study. 1 more hour of sleep or 10 to 15 minutes meditation a day significantly lowered relapse in recovering substance abuse. So not only by normal humans, but you can imagine addicts and how difficult for them is to delay gratification, because addiction is everything about immediate gratification. Just an additional hour of sleep or 10-15 minutes meditation a day. Because sleep deprived people's frontal brain, this frontal is ratio, like good guys, is underactivated, and midbrain, this I want it now, the region associated with impulses and instincts are more activated when we are sleep deprived. But then we can think, okay, why, for example, in yoga, some really yogic masters were torturing their students with sleep deprivation? That's like when you put the backpack, really heavy one, on your back and you want to go upstairs and you do it more times, and then without backpack, you can really run. Okay, so if you learn to control yourself in that stage, then in normal life, it's like a piece of cake. But if we are not there, then we can't. If you have bad knees and you take a backpack and you want to go upstairs, you will break your knee. Okay, so we have to have certain level of fitness in order to do it. And then after a couple of months of physical exercise or 10-minute meditation daily, the prefrontal cortex is already bigger, denser, better connected. So these good guys are working better, they're stronger. And then this is really interesting. Big spikes and drops in blood sugar level disturb how the brain uses energy and switch activity back to midbrain regions. So if we eat chocolate and drink coffee and so on, our brain just goes like when you don't have stable power supply in your surge, and it just goes up and down, and that's not good. These front guys get tired and midbrain takes over. So in that sense, plant-based diet stabilizes blood sugar level, and it's great, and it's the best for the willpower. All right. So what we can do? We can sleep more if we are sleep deprived, but definitely just a little bit of meditation already makes that up. Simple breath focus meditation, 10 minutes a day already means a lot. Physical exercise, definitely, to sustain the level of our energy, and then some proper healthy food. And anything you do from that, 4 or 5 things, gives you far more willpower than it takes. Because you don't just have it for this challenge, but it transfers to all the areas of your life. When you learn it in one area, then you have this transfer of that ability to other areas. And that's why also in our system, Vishwa Guruji insists like, he insists really like pick up one thing, just one, and decide and do it. Of course, the best would be fasting Monday or Thursday or Monday and Thursday, but you can pick up one thing. I will not eat anymore, whatever, coconut. Then you just don't do it. So practicing willpower in small area, practicing that kind of discipline actually helps with all other areas. Because you train your ability to delay gratification, to discipline yourself. So, and then our pattern of thinking, that's the next experiment. How do we evaluate our failure? Do you think that feeling bad, guilty, regret, self-criticism helps us to improve next time when you have the failure in willpower, or it's the source of improvement? Or you think that feeling bad about willpower failure would be a further drain? Will be helpful if I feel bad and then I decide next time I must, or feeling bad will actually make me even worse, less successful next time. And then the finding based on researches is that guilt and shame switch the brain to the mode 2, to this emotional guys, and front cortex is not working that much. So the harder we are on ourselves when we have willpower failure, more likely is to have the same failure again, and the bigger it's going to be. Okay, so if we are more critical, more guilty, it's going to be more difficult. With addicts, if they feel critical and guilty about last night drinking failure, when they want to stop drink and they failed, immediately they drink when they wake up. Same goes for smoking, eating, gambling, everything. Because that guilt and shame puts us in the state of lower version of ourselves. And then this is how yogis do it. How to calm the mind when negative thoughts start. You just withdraw yourself and repeat mantra, being on an observer. Again, just observing. And then the next experiment of the same author was about future self. Now try to pick up one which is true for yourself as the answer to the question when you compare who you are today and who you are going to be in 30 years. Which one is true for you? Just pick one. Me today, me in 30 years. You don't need to tell anything, just decide. And then some experiment, I again don't want to go into detail, says that the more you feel future self is a stranger, you will more protect it from future happiness. If the future self is not the stranger, you will take more care of it. Why to bother over stranger? Better to concentrate on today's person, you know. So just imagining yourself grocery shopping in the future, so unrelated to any goal, just grocery shopping, leads people to make better decisions in the present moment, and that will pay off in the future. Imagine positive and negative consequences of your goal. Both will have good impact on present behavior because you connect with the future self. So the intervention here is get to know your future self. It can be in psychotherapy, in counseling, write the letter from present self to your future self. That's actually about understanding how our actions now influence our future. And how we start understanding this is when we think, again, meditation self-inquiry, meditation level 2, when you go to past, then you understand how your previous actions made you the way you are today. So you can also relate what you are doing today will determine your future. Right. So it's not about who you are going exactly to be, but it's about understanding that future happiness depends on who we are today, what we do today, and to connect. Right. So this is now something that is really important. The more praise, the greater willpower challenge. When you think, wow, no, that's piece of cake for me, I'll be great. That's not good. Humbleness is much better. Predicting that you will exercise tomorrow, okay, today I don't have time, I'll do it tomorrow, will lead you not to do it today or to eat chocolate today and so on. Better say to yourself, tomorrow I'll be equally crampy and not having time and like this, so better to do it today. If you are very optimistic about huge amount of success, eventually will do nothing. Instead of huge goals, small steps. This is what psychology says, and what yoga says, the same thing is manava dire dire, slowly, slowly, step by step, step by step. Okay, so I wanted to show this. I'm not sure if I want to do it because of the time. Do we have 15 minutes more or we don't have it? All right. So, but this. Do we see the picture? Right.
3, 2, 1, breathe. Good, okay. So holding your breath, obviously that's a little bit of a willpower challenge. Some of you maybe you need to hold your breath for 2 minutes to feel it, but I did not want anyone passing out. So would you believe that this ability to hold your breath is one of the best predictors of people's ability to succeed at difficult goals? It's kind of interesting. Psychologists call this distress tolerance, the ability to stay put when things get uncomfortable. So I want to tell you now about a small intervention that teaches people how to sort of hold their breath, but not exactly, how to basically ride out physical discomfort that gets in the way of making a difficult change. I'm going to tell you about 2 different studies that are basically using the same technique, so you can kind of pick your willpower challenge here. The first I call the torture chamber. And this was a study of smokers who wanted to quit but had been unable to. And the researchers asked the smokers to abstain from smoking for 24 hours, sort of a first challenge, and then to come into the laboratory with a fresh, unopened pack of their favorite brand of cigarettes. So all the smokers show up, they've got their pack, they are desperate for a smoke, and they even carbon monoxide tested them to make sure they hadn't smoked. So they were ready for a cigarette. They all get seated at a long table and asked to put away all distractions except for a lighter or a match and their cigarettes. So you got a bunch of smokers now, they're ready. And then the experimenter is about to begin the process of allowing them to smoke. And she says through actually a microphone like that, you hear this voice that says, "Take out your pack of cigarettes." And everyone does, they're all excited, woo, stop. Okay, they have to wait 2 minutes now, and they're not allowed to do anything except look at their pack of cigarettes. Pull off the cellophane. Okay, great. Stop. 2 minutes they have to wait. Okay. Pack it. Oh, there was pack. See, I don't smoke. I forget some of these steps. They had to pack the pack too. And they got the cellophane open. Okay, take out a cigarette. Finally. Stop. They have to wait 2 minutes. And this goes on. And every 2 minutes, they're writing down how intense their cravings are and how much they want to smoke. But other than that, they're not allowed to do anything. Take a cigarette out. Stop. 2 minutes. Look at the cigarette. Stop. 2 minutes. Smell the cigarette. Stop. 2 minutes. Put the cigarette in your mouth. Stop. 2 minutes. Take out a lighter. Look at it. Stop. 2 minutes. This went on for over an hour. Nobody was actually allowed to light the cigarette. Okay. So here's I didn't tell you what the actual intervention was yet. Half of them before this happened had been taught a technique called surfing the urge, in which you learn to pay attention to the physical discomfort of wanting something. You give it your full attention, and you trust that you can tolerate those physical sensations, and if you just wait with patience, they will go away. That any craving, any emotion will eventually pass if you can just breathe and wait it out, that you don't have to act on every impulse or emotion. So that's the technique they were taught. They were surfing the urge. They were imagining those cravings as a wave that they were getting on, and they were just going to breathe, and they knew that it would eventually end, just like a wave. Before I tell you the results of this study, let me just give you the food one. The food one's a little bit different. They took people who had problems with self-control around food, especially sweets, gave them a clear container of Hershey's Kisses, transparent container, and they had to carry that box of Hershey's Kisses around with them for 48 hours, and were not allowed to eat a single one. And they were all carefully marked, little pin scratch, so that the researchers would know if they ate them and restocked it, which would not be cool. Okay, and they were taught the same technique about how to handle cravings, how to surf the urge, allow yourself to feel the craving, and yet remember you don't need to act on it, and the craving will go away eventually. Okay, so the results. In this study, the smokers who had been taught how to surf the urge in that 1 hour torture test, they ended up reducing their cigarette smoke by 40% in the very next week, even though the researchers had not asked them to. The control group did not reduce their cigarettes at all. And interestingly, in the people who had learned to surf the urge, there was now no longer a connection between psychological stress and smoking, which is actually, that's the main connection for a lot of people who are trying to quit. They're stressed out, they're anxious, and so they need a cigarette. And in this particular group with this intervention, it cut that link between stress and giving in, probably because they had a tool for dealing with difficult feelings and emotions. In this study, the people who had trouble with self-control around food, if they were taught to surf the urge, 0 had a single Hershey's Kiss over the entire 48 hours. Whereas those who'd been given other strategies, including distraction, ended up much more likely to give in and also really stressed out about it. So these are just 2 different examples of how surfing the urge can give us a lot of willpower for the things where we need willpower.
Okay, so this is clear Just 1 second. And the same goes for different things. It's not only for this bad habits, but also, for example, in schizophrenia patients, they learn not to trust their thoughts. When somebody is telling them innerly, I mean, hearing voice, do this, do that, they can serve the urge and not behave according to that. So that's what she calls, Kelly McGonigal from Stanford University, what she calls surfing the urge. It's actually staying present, observing, not doing anything. And this is what we do in meditation, just observing our thoughts, observing our impulses, but not doing anything. So nowadays, through this all research is actually the world is somehow more and more explaining what yogis were saying many years back. And yoga and cognitive functions, I'll do just shortly, 1 to 3 minutes, and then we will conclude. So this here is, do we have presentation on now? Thanks. So through the researches, again, the positive impact of yoga on our attention. And then Bastrika makes certain improvement in reaction time. So after Bastrika, people are much more motorically, like when they see something they need to do, press the button or something. When after Bastrika, the results are much better. And then memory, concentration, and better planning and cognitive speed. And even with smaller cognitive impairments, there was some improvement. So this is about, in general, yoga and cognitive functions, but now just a little bit more in detail, our brain during meditation. So these are brain waves, they are different for what kind of waves, it doesn't really matter. But anyway, in meditation, we have less complex waves, more beta, which means increases attention. And in this, this here means more optimism, because usually the optimistic persons, they have more of this alpha in the left temporal lobe. Okay, a depressive person, more of the alpha in the left temporal lobe, and in the right, more optimistic. And it's shown that meditation kind of corrects that. So it helps that definitely people go in the way of more optimistic. And then increase gray matter in this insula, in hippocampus, these areas of the brain. And that actually means that it allows insula, it allows the higher processing and further mental development in humans. And the whole chakra book explains how we are actually using more and more of our brain and developing awareness, like developing more. Hippocampus is also enhancing the cognitive functioning and logical reasoning. So meditation makes us, let's say, more intelligent. And then improvement of mental function connecting with these areas also improve not only our IQ, let's say more intelligent, but compassion and empathy, also shown by researchers. And then activation of left frontal areas improves the general mood, immunity, and lowers the stress. And the last topic, just a small one, is Om chant and Brahmari pranayam. Okay, it balances Brahmari, right and left hemisphere. And you know how when we practice, we always try to, even if our teeth are uneven left and right, you try to correct it. You can't bite the teeth if it's different. If you don't have one, then there's no sense, because you need to feel into two brain hemispheres equally. Lowers the blood pressure, balancing the central nervous system, and releasing cerebral tensions, relieves stress, anxiety, anger, inducing sound sleep. supports the function of pineal and pituitary gland. Okay, pineal is the master gland connected to hypothalamus, and it's for our sleep, heart rate, growth, temperature. Okay, so all these vital functions, let's say. And it's also kind of sonic cleanser, which means it cures the infection of ears, throat, nose infection, curing the infection. This is important, especially COVID, yeah. Tinnitus helping and supports the healing of bodily tissues and helping with intuition. Okay, Swamiji says after the pranayama, beautiful symbols appear. And then this is really interesting. The oscillating sound wave improves gas exchange in the sinuses and increases generation of nitric oxide by 15-fold. Okay, now what is nitric oxide? This is the paper. I put the blue thing here so that you can see the findings. So now what is nitric oxide? That's something that helps in patients with COVID-19 when they have this pulmonary hypertension, big pressure in the lungs. It reverses that. It improves severe hypoxia when people can't have enough oxygen and can't inhale. Nitric oxide helps and improves the it shortens the length of support on respirator compared to control group. Then it has antiviral effect, which means it inhibits the viral protein, reducing the yield of progeny virus by 82%. So reduces the ability of virus to replicate. And then it stimulates this ciliary motility, and they are responsible for transporting fluids over the surface of the cells. So preventing so many different, like primary ciliary dyskinesia is 30 genes are involved in that. That's when there are some movement or restless legs or disruption in movement and like this. And then respiratory problems are connecting to this ciliary motility. And then infertility as well. So the major deficit of inner organs are connected to that. Okay, so this all is connected to nitric oxide, which when we practice the Brahmari by 15-fold is more generated. Right, so that's why Brahmari pranayama. And just to conclude, what is yoga? Back to our yoga definition. Yoga means balance, is the main definition from our yoga and daily life system, but balance in every sense, balancing all the body systems, balancing our actions, not too less, not too much of everything, balancing our energy, no spikes, not ups and downs, balancing our emotions, feelings, moods, balancing our reactions so that your behavior is aligned with situation, your emotion is aligned with situation, balancing self-care with caring for others. You can't care for others if you don't care for yourself, so healthy boundaries. Balancing our emotions with our intellect, front guys and inner guys, yeah? Balancing the areas of our life. I mean, saying work-life balance is somehow not enough because we are not about work and life. There's so many aspects to us. So balancing all the areas of our life, balancing our values with our behavior, which means integrity. That you do what you believe, that you are doing what you think, that you say what you believe. And the ultimate balance is alignment of who we are, our dharma or purpose, with what choices we make in our life, what do we actually do. So Vishwaguruji, the author of Yoga and the Life System, says, am I doing for what I came here for? And if not, what shall I be doing instead? And that's the answer we want to have through the meditation, the ultimate question of the life, this koham, katam, idam, jatam, who I am, and so on. Right. So that's what yoga is giving us. Thank you. We are almost welcome for the yoga classes. And we have them here in Australia. Yoga in the Life Australia has in-person and online. You can join from anywhere in the world. And if you like to get this presentation, you can type your email in chat or send us an email to our Sydney address. Right, stop sharing. There we are. Thank you. Any questions, anything?
I was just wondering if everyone who's here today knows what Brahmari is. I don't know if you'd like to explain.
Yeah, sure. Brahmari, I just don't know how to do it with this. Probably it's possible. Brahmari pranayam is like when you do humming sound with om with prolonged m, and it sounds like this. I need to switch to original sound. Okay, it sounds like this. And then more powerful version of it is that you close your ears so you can listen to your inner sound. Otherwise, you can't really notice what's going on in your brain. And when you listen to your inner sound, listening to inner, you close your ears like this. Swamiji always says, don't push too much, you don't want to hurt yourself and cut your nails. And then two are equally inside, really blocking every sound from outside. You can't hear me, so is it better now? Arms are this level because you don't want to be somehow squeezing the lungs. You want to really open. That's first thing. And the second thing, what I explained with the teeth, you can bite if they are perfectly even, up, down, left, right. Then you will have the same sound, left and right brain. But if they are not, then we need to open a little bit and find the way that the sound is equal, left and right. And we repeat more times after we complete, let's say 5 or 10 or 11 or 27, well, depending who you are, what your capacity, and like this. Then just concentrating on that vibration because it's ongoing. Left and right side of the brain, basically. It's waking up the centers in the brain and producing what we learned there. Right, any more questions? Thank you, Gitika. If you have questions, you are really welcome. Right. Then Purnima, over to you.
Thank you, Madhu, for such a informative talk on mental health and practices that we can all utilize in our daily lives. And even if we only apply one from today's talk, it will surely make a positive change in our lives and in the lives of all those around us. So a lot of information to contemplate and I guess follow up on if you'd like to join some of our beautiful meditation and, you know, workshops and courses, then by all means, just look up your local centers and we're always running things. So, you know, we have a lot on offer online. I'd also like to just take this opportunity to thank you all for coming along to share this celebration and honoring yoga, which we all love immensely. For more information, please contact your local centres, join up for our newsletters or go to our website www.yogadailylife.org.au for more details of all of the upcoming webinars, classes, courses and workshops. So we wish you a very happy and blessed evening and hope to see you again next Saturday for an informative webinar on physical health with our senior Sunshine Coast teacher, Yamuna Puri. So, Hari Om everyone and good evening.